live.
Okay, we're live. Good morning, everybody. This is the Senate Transportation Committee, and it is Wednesday, February 9th, and we're going to continue our discussion this morning on S-280. We've passed over it a few times, and Senator Pearson had an amendment. We're trying to work our way through it, and there was some interest in inviting Michelle Childs, Legislative Counsel, for some questions that I think some of the committee members had. So I don't know who would like to lead off. Senator Ingalls, Senator Perkins, whoever is there. Senator Chittenden, go right ahead.
I can jump in if you like, or Senator Perkins, please.
Hello.
I can just say that I think what we were hoping to hear from more about is just the clarity of those that are on the registry and what it takes to get on the registry, and then how that interacts with those that are in the TAP program. I'm assuming that's why we wanted to have Ms. Childs here, is to talk about more about the registry type of things, because I don't think you work on the TAP program side of things. Is that right?
No.
Yeah, right.
Just on the drug end.
Yeah. So that was the question. And I mean, and yeah. Wanda's here today. Wanda wasn't here yesterday. We did hear from Mike, but I got some other information from Wanda via email in her discussion with the Attorney General. So I don't know if that also would be helpful for the committee to hear. So I don't know if that's helpful or not.
And I would just like to hear just more about the registry, just maybe a quick synopsis of how it works, how it works, so we can make an informed decision about that.
Sure. So how about I give you a little overview? And I don't know, my apologies if Bryn already went over the stuff and I'm repeating some things, but so Vermont was, I think, the 9th state in 2004 to adopt a medical cannabis program. So we've had it, so we were one of the earlier adopters. The reason that it's structured the way that it is and answer Senator Chittenden's kind of question before around why is it different? So it's not prescribed by a physician or a nurse practitioner. And that's because cannabis is still a Schedule I drug. So under the Controlled Substances Act, I think most folks are aware. So it's illegal at the federal level, and Schedule I drugs have a special designation that says that they do not have any medical value. So cannabis has been in that since early 70s. I think 1970 with the Controlled Substances Act was adopted, and so states have different laws with regard to cannabis because states don't have to have the identical laws as the feds. So we can have different laws at the state level, but it's still federally illegal. And so therefore you can't have physicians prescribing it the way that you would some other controlled substance that's allowed to be prescribed. And so the way that it's set up, and if it's okay, Jeannie, did you make it so I could share the screen? And
can you share?
There we go. Okay. Can y'all see that up on the screen?
Yep.
Okay, great. I just wanted to take you to the definition of a debilitating medical condition, because I think this is probably one of the questions that you have. So the way that it works, because it's not prescription based, is that if you would like to go on the registry, you have to have your healthcare provider who you have an established relationship with fill out a medical verification form. And they have to attest to the fact that that you're their patient, that they've seen you, and that you have a debilitating medical condition. And here's the definition of debilitating medical condition. So you'll see the list there. This has been amended, several times over the years. So it's not kind of an open-ended where, like, if you saw your physician and then they just prescribe a medication, what the physician is doing is just saying, yes, I've seen this person, they're my patient, and they have one of these qualifying conditions. So you'll see things there like cancer, MS, HIV, Crohn's. Subdivision 4B is PTSD. That was added sometime maybe in the last 5 years. That's one of the newer ones. But for the PTSD, it has to be confirmed that the person is also undergoing counseling with a licensed mental health care provider. And then 4C is kind of the catch-all. So a disease or medical condition or its treatment that's chronic, debilitating, and produces one of or more of the following intractable symptoms. Chronic pain is on there, severe nausea, seizures. Chronic pain, is my understanding, has kind of traditionally been kind of one of the larger categories of why people go on there. So I think, a lot of people who have chronic painful back issues or other kind of pain issues will oftentimes be on there because of that reason. And so once you've submitted your application and this medical verification form, then it's the board now that has the program, but it was run by the Department of Public Safety since it started in 2004, and it just shifted over to the new Cannabis Control Board. But I can say that with the shift, the qualifying conditions have stayed the same. And so I don't know, obviously, what's planned for the future of the program. But right now it is what it is, the same under DPS as it is under the Cannabis Control Board. And I think Senator Chittenden had posed the question about, well, what does the benefit of the registry offer to somebody who is a patient? And one thing is that they're allowed to possess more cannabis than someone who's not on the registry. So, you did legalize in 2018. And you allowed someone to have an ounce and to grow a couple mature plants and a few immature plants. Under the general legalization law, you can have a little more if you are a registered patient. You can have 2 ounces and you can have a few more immature plants. And then the big one is that it allows you to go to one of the medical cannabis dispensaries to obtain cannabis and cannabis products. There are not really any, so it's what that dispensary offers. So it's not tied to, you can't have certain types of product, things like that. So there's not kind of a detailed level of you're only allowed to have certain types of cannabis or percentage of THC in the cannabis or things like that. That is not part of the program.
Yes, Senator Perkins.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Childs. Is it just licensed medical professionals, or is it like care provider? I think you said care provider or doctor, or I can't remember how you termed it, but who can do the form saying you have the disease?
Yep. Can you see, I've got the statute back up, and you can see right here, bona fide healthcare professional patient relationship.
Okay.
So treating or consulting relationship of not less than 3 months duration. And then there's some exemptions for the 3-month requirement. And then if we look down here for the healthcare provider or professional, you'll see subdivision 7 is someone licensed to practice medicine, also a naturopathic physician, a physician assistant, and advanced practice nurse practitioner. And there is reciprocity with states that are on the Vermont border.
Okay, because some other states have that healthcare professional for medical cannabis is much more open. I understand. Like who can do the prescribing? Like in California, it's
right. Okay. Yeah, and and these, like I said, California was the first state to do it, and that had, the states have been obviously evolving over, for the last almost 20 years that we've been doing this, and so Also with legalization, that has kind of, shifted some of the medical programs as well, kind of because if you have really strict things for the medical program, but you have essentially an open commercial market and people can grow and possess on their own, doesn't really make a lot of sense to be super restrictive to get into medical when it's legal for everyone.
Yes, Senator Chittenden.
So I'm very naive on this subject, but I'm thinking of alcohol as a comparison. With alcohol, there are spirits with proof labels like 40 proof, and then there's beer, which is, down in 5%. And then there's also like NyQuil. And then there's stuff that has like a portion of alcohol that people can take over the counter and so on. Is there any type of gradient when it comes to marijuana that we in statute could say that medical marijuana of this grade over the shelf just for that doesn't affect the decision-making processes nearly as much? Is there a way to distinguish between the types of marijuana that are sold through our dispensaries? Or used?
That doesn't exist currently in the dispensary system, so there's nothing really for you to tie in there. So I don't know if you're talking about someone having an exemption under the language that you're talking about, saying, but provided that person is not purchasing any products that have, above a 15% THC or something like that, there's no structure within the dispensary system to monitor that or prohibit that. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you.
Senator Ingalls.
So basically, to further on Senator Chittenden's thing, there's no potency level indicator of where it is. I mean, there's nothing in there, there other than advertisements of, well, this is this or this is that, and but there's not a standard of potency that when somebody goes and buys that, like there is with alcohol, the warning label or the 40% or the 5% or anything like that.
They are required to be labeling with THC content, so that the consumer knows what they're purchasing, and they're working with the dispensary on which products, but there isn't anything that is preventing certain products that are offered by the dispensary.
Would you say that the users of medical marijuana are buying at the dispensary more, or are they growing themselves?
I wouldn't know that. That would be a question for Bryn. So I think you would have to look and
you kind of lose the chain of custody of potency if you're growing yourself versus buying from a dispensary. If you're you really don't know where somebody is, what they've ingested, what their levels are, or anything, if they're growing at home versus buying from a registry. Is more of a comment, I think, than anything, a thought process.
Okay.
I think one of the things about the dispensaries, and that's going to stay, as the way that it's structured now is the commercial comes online, is the idea is that you can purchase products in the medical dispensaries that may not be available on the commercial market because of what people are looking for in a medical context may be very different. And there are some people who, they might need something with a certain formula or balance between THC and CBD and have a lower THC because they're dealing with nausea. And then someone else who might have, had, MS for the last 20 years and been enrolled in a program and using it, and they have a tolerance and they need a higher THC tincture to manage their seizures. So it's really kind of just like you would think of, as a pharmacy, which is there's going to be a variety of products and patients are going to choose which ones work for them.
Any other questions? I can't see all the committee members, so just jump right in if you have a question, please. Anybody else? Okay, well, thank you very much. I appreciate you helping us this morning. It's a very involved subject and we're trying to get through it. Thanks again.
All right, well, good luck, and let me know if you need me back or free to email any questions.
Okay, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
So committee, what are we going to do?
If Wanda's available, if they
Yeah,
can might be
Wanda,
helpful for-
yeah, she should be on this morning. DMV's with us this morning.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
all right. Let's see if we can get this thing resolved.
So good morning. For the record, Wanda Manoli, Commissioner of DMV, and I've got the sun shining in, so I really can't see you.
All right.
That's
the sun
that
is
it's
out.
sun-
That's
yeah,
great.
that's right. So would you like me to answer some specific questions?
I think if you could tell the committee, I think I heard that you had some discussion with one of the assistant attorney generals. That might be helpful. And then just maybe restating DMV's position.
Yep. So thank you very much. So in looking at the proposal, I did have a conversation with legal to do a hypothetical, and we have discussed, DMV has said, I think that we may believe there's some unintended consequences with this proposal. And so the hypothetical that we looked at is if an individual is currently enrolled in the total abstinence program, that and they get convicted of a DUI. Let's say they're in it, they've had 3 and now they get convicted of their 4th. What the statute states is that I must immediately revoke that person's privilege to operate. And so on the other side, if there's another unique condition in the TA program, my concern is that will be the challenge. And so the hypothetical is if they get picked up for driving under the influence of drugs, they are tested, the conviction is based on THC, however it's measured, that's not my role. That when I immediately revoke them, that I have a conflict in the TA program. Because when I immediately suspend, when I get that notification from corrections, not corrections, I'm sorry, from judiciary, we immediately go into the system and suspend their privilege to operate. But over on the other side, there may be this unique condition, right? That if you hold the registry card at that time, and you were in the program holding the registry card at that time, that I may be creating a new set of standards. And that was the hypothetical. I mean, I asked that we did not have a lot of time to do deep analysis. That was the hypothetical that I shared with you, Senator. And what's difficult is that we have one process that we have to implement under the DUI law. And then under the TA program, we manage that. And so that is our concern. It's an unknown, but it was an example. The other thing I'd just like to say to the committee, I had an opportunity to go back and watch a little bit of the testimony yesterday, and you talked about impairment, and there is a threshold you can't cross. And one of our challenges is with the registry card, we can't measure that threshold. And that's a concern. The other piece of information that I'll provide you is we have a little less than 1,200 individuals enrolled in this program. So I'm not clear if we're trying to address a 1% of those participants or 50% of the participants. And I have no way of measuring that. And so that's another unintended consequence that I'll just put, we don't know.
It does feel kind of like we're trying to find a solution to allow people to use medical marijuana under this program versus trying to keep the integrity of the program, which is important to me. I don't care. The law is the law is the law as far as on medical marijuana. I don't care about any of that stuff. I'm not here to rewrite the laws on medical marijuana. That's been all resolved. What I want to do is I want to make sure that you are comfortable maintaining the integrity of the program. And can you, if we were to decide that we would support this amendment, can you maintain the integrity of the program that you guys are diligently trying to do?
I think it adds another, some of that I don't know. I mean, I go back to total abstinence. You've asked the Department of Motor Vehicle to, well, first as a legislative body, you did a lifetime suspension after 3 DUIs. And you acknowledge there are individuals out there that work very hard towards their sobriety. And you created language that through this program, which the application process is very intense, that in maintaining their sobriety and providing that, I can reissue their credential to operate a vehicle without conditions, except for the sobriety condition. And so, you know, for us, there are things that we just don't know. And we're trying to look at, is there, I know that you always try to harmonize legislative language, right? Statute. And, you know, I look at the DUI statute and I look at what I'm expected to do, but then I'm over here, I may be managing, again, a population. I don't know if it's 1 or if it's 100 differently than the other individuals in the program.
Yes, Senator Perkins.
And can you remind me, Commissioner, on if you don't do the tap, you can still drive, but you have to have the ignition system. So it's not, the tap isn't the only way for some people that have had these DUIs, like they can do the ignition system, the breathalyzer.
Correct. And actually, ignition interlock comes after your second DUI. You're suspended. But if you want to immediately, while you're going through that suspension, you can have an ignition interlock put into your vehicle and drive after, and then you can maintain that ignition interlock.
And it could
But
somebody,
that measures alcohol, Senator.
right? No, I know that, but I guess, so I was just wondering if somebody was on medical marijuana and got to the situation where they were, the only option was tap, could the interlock system is only for those that have the DUIs for alcohol, right? Okay.
Sorry, I know we're on the record and I'm shaking my head and that can't capture that. Yes.
Senator Chittenden.
So you said 1,200 people are in this program. That's more than I expected. And can I confirm that all 1,200 of those people had been arrested 3 times for driving under the influence? It's not like a compounding of other types of offenses. 3 driving under the influences to get
It's
into
3 or more. And we have individuals that have had, you know, over 10 DUIs. I'm not trying to say the sky is falling, but, you know, yes, it's 3 or more. And those individuals have, you know, for the most part, have worked very hard to obtain their abstinence.
So Senator Pearson's amendment, is there any wiggle room at all, or is it up or down on that amendment? How is this going to be
Are
handled?
you asking the committee or?
I'm asking, sure, anyone that wants to answer the question.
I'm going to take the lead on it as far as to answer that. I just don't want to mess with the integrity of the program. I think that at times when we can, as we progress with this marijuana, medical marijuana thing, and there's better testing and there's ways to know and all of that, I don't want to mess with the total abstinence program at this time. I can see a path at some point in time forward, but I don't think it's today. Maybe it's next year, maybe it's a year after that, maybe it's something different. But if I was to vote on it right now, I would say that I would not be interested in the amendment.
Members of the committee, Senator Perkins.
Yeah, and I had tried to work with Pearson to make it, you know, to close what I thought as kind of a loophole. But I think he's not going to push it, but I mean, I could check with him, but I think if the committee isn't going to be supportive, he's not going to still, you know, put it forward. He thought it was, you know, he's trying to help that one constituent that he had talked with. But if the committee isn't supportive, he'll pull it back. I don't see, to answer your question, Chair, I don't see another way to compromise on it. It's we either support it or not support it, I think.
Senator Chittenden.
I'm of a similar mind to Senator Ingalls and where Senator Perchlik was, just since these individuals have proven that they will drive under the influence, I don't feel like making it easier for them to have access and to stay in the program. And not these individuals, but I heard Wanda say most of these are doing a really good job. It's those few, I don't feel like we need to carve out exceptions to make it easier for them. But I think the chair posed the question to Wanda, and I'm curious, Wanda, do you see any alteration of this language which might sort of thread the needle? And no, okay, so I'm seeing her shake her head no. So I do not support the amendment.
Senator Kitchell.
Well, I'm trying to go back it seemed like it was with the interlock that we were getting the trigger of people having medication, but it's bigger than that, because we have people who have total abstinence, and they don't have to have the interlock. And so how did we even modify this language to address, to provide for the medications that are prescribed? Obviously, this is different. There's no prescription. There's no medical review, whether you take 20 milligrams or 10 or whatever, because we don't have that degree of sophistication. We don't have anything comparable to the interlock for drugs. I'm back to sort of Senator Perch, like, what do we do with interlock versus the TA? And I guess when we did that recognition that there will be times when people are taking prescribed drugs, they're taking them consistent with the instructions. It was to address both the interlock problem, as well as, did we have people that were getting arrested because of and was violating total abstinence, but they weren't using the interlock? Was this driven by both?
If I can address, I'm going to try to address some of that, Senator. You had individuals, as I recall, that testified before that amendment. If your prescription drug was on the Schedule I registry, then you were not eligible to be in the program, or you would be removed from the program. And so what the Senate did at that time is you defined the prescription, and to your statement is that, so you can be on a Schedule I prescription and, for back pain because you had surgery, and you have to manage it to the prescription. If there's a known violation with the individual, if they that in the program, then you can measure that prescription. And it's really about, what does the prescription bottle say? What is the dose? And are you managing to the prescription? And I'm trying to simplify it. And that's what I recall around the program, and that is how we're managing it. That if it's a Schedule I and it's a legitimate prescription, then it's not against your agreement to participate in the program.
Okay, so it covers both the interlock and the total abstinence. Yes. I think the situation was very sympathetic, but it seems like we're really struggling to address that situation within the desire to have integrity of total abstinence. We're not dealing with a prescribed drug. We're not dealing with the ability to measure whether the requirement of consistent with the instructions of the prescriber, and so I'm sorry this person ended up how he did, but I guess would have had probably 3 DUIs in order to have ended up here anyway. So I think that the comment "not now" or until we have have greater confidence that this could be done with integrity and within the spirit of this provision, it's hard to open this up at this time.
We have spent a considerable amount of time on this subject. It isn't that we haven't researched it, and I don't sense that we're really comfortable with it at this point. And I would probably recommend that someone want to get a hold of Senator Pearson and then see what his thoughts are, go through with him what we've gone through, and out of courtesy. And I think at that point, then we can he can either withdraw the amendment, or we'll have to explain why we're not comfortable at this time. So is that pretty much covers it, I think. Senator Perchlik?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk to him about it, and
Yeah,
I'm,
that would be great.
I'm assuming from my other conversation with him that he'll withdraw it, so we don't have to talk about it on the floor, but I'll confirm and let you know.
That'd be great. And then if we could do it today, it would be nice if we could get it done this afternoon and we could pass that bill, because we can't spend any more time on this subject. We've been on it for 3 or 4 days, and I think we got all the information we need. And I sense that it's not the right time. Not that it won't be in the future, but it's not the right time. Okay. Thank you, Wanda.
Thank you, committee, and thank you for taking up and this conversation.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
So do I.
Okay, committee. All right. I think we're going to move on. I think if we're a little early on the papers, but is the paving, Jeannie, are the paving people in the waiting room that want to get started?
Nick Sherman, who I believe is the lobbyist, if I have that right, he's in the waiting room, but the witnesses are not.
Okay, well, why don't we have Nick Sherman lead off
Okay.
and we can start with
They
him.
should be happy, Senator Mazza, with the paving budget that we've
Well,
got.
that's what I'm
What,
saying.
158 million?
Be very happy. That's why I want.
50% above.
Yeah, that's right.
Mr. Sherman is in the meeting.
Okay, Mr. Sherman, are you here this morning?
I'm here. Good morning.
Well, good morning and welcome. We thought we'd have the paving crew in this year. As you know, I'm sure you're well aware, paving is up 50%. It's about 153 million this year. And it's, I remember we usually run at 100 million. So some of the questions that were talked about is what's going to happen for the availability of pavers? Are they going to accommodate this kind of volume of work? The prices are going to be, we don't know what the prices are going to be because of the shortage of labor and product and materials. And so I thought I'd have a good overview with you folks and express your feelings of what this coming season is going to look like, and any issues that are concerns to the paving industry. We'd like to hear them. So with that, I know you're the first one in the waiting room, so let's lead off with you, and then we'll go on to the different companies. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Senator Mazza, and thank you to the committee for having us in today. I'm Nick Sherman. I'm a lobbyist with Leonine Public Affairs, and I represent the Paving Association of Vermont. And I will be joined by those members any minute now. I think they were planning to come in for 9:45. So
Yeah, we had it. We're just running a little ahead, that's all.
Yeah, so they'll be joining me shortly, and I'll let them speak to a lot of those specifics on the questions you asked.
Okay.
But I can kick it off by saying, I mean, the main thing that we want to convey is that we are supportive of the governor's recommended budget, and would ask that the committee support that when you're looking at it when it comes over from the House. We think that it certainly will be, the increase in miles will be something that will be in some ways challenging for the industry to do, but also something that we think is achievable. And if we continue our close working relationship with the state, V-Trans in particular. Since the pandemic, I mean, before the pandemic, but really since the pandemic, the industry's been in close contact with V-Trans in the beginning, figuring out how to get the program up and running again, be able to get out and do the work in a manner that was safe. Since that time, there's really been, I would say, at least in my experience, kind of an unprecedented level of communication between industry and the agency that has really served the state well. And since the pandemic started, both paving seasons have really gone quite well, with the work being completed for the most part on time, and what we would really view as successful programs. So as we look forward, I think this coming year, what's proposed is getting close to 300 miles, which is a significant increase over what the program has been in previous years. It's also an amount that we've maintained for a long time, and have said whenever we come into legislative committees that we think 300 miles is the right amount to do every year to be able to maintain the state system. So we're very encouraged by the fact that the mileage is increasing. And really, for the industry, the key to being able to implement a successful program is to have the sort of planning and foresight of seeing as early as possible what the year is going to look like. That allows the companies to plan themselves. And these are companies, when you talk about resources and the challenges that will exist around that, especially as all states are getting this influx of federal infrastructure money. A lot of these companies do work in multiple states up here in the Northeast. So when they're looking at planning their year out, they're looking at not just what are we doing in Vermont, but what are we doing in New Hampshire, Maine, Massachusetts, New York. And they, based on what that looks like, that's how they determine, their schedule, where they're going to send their crews, when they're going to send their crews. And that certainly, can affect what folks are seeing on the projects on the roads as the year goes on. I mean, I'm sure there have been times when folks have seen a project that there's been work being done on it, but then a couple weeks will go by and there isn't any work. And that could be, there's a lot of reasons that could be, but it could be because just the way the schedule is going, for the whole outlook for a given company that's doing that job, that they have to be in different places at different times. So the earlier that industry can be aware of what the program is going to look like and what the schedule is going to be, the better. And this is something that we've been talking with the agency about for a long time. And frankly, they've been doing a great job, in our opinion, of giving the forewarning and getting the program out early and giving industry an idea of what we're going to be looking at. So as the dollars increase and as the size of the program increases and as the miles increase, that's really going to, continuing that level of communication and that working relationship is going to be critical to be successful. And I see that folks from industry have been jumping on, so I'm happy to stop there myself. If there are any questions for me, happy to answer them. But in terms of the specifics of what you're looking for, we can certainly talk about capacity, talk about workforce, talk about materials and sourcing and pricing. I'm happy to leave it there. And
one of the things that we've always been faced with in the past is you want to get the bids out early enough. Is that working better? Let's take last year, for example, because one of the criticism we always had was we never got the bids out early enough where they could plan. They should be out, I don't know if it's March or February or January, but with this certainty of funds now, I suspect that they'll be available to bid early on, I think. that's my curiosity there, because it's always been an issue of we can't get the bids in April because it's too late. I mean, we can get them, but it's not going to be effective. So that might be something to keep in mind as we're going through this, because there is a, like I said, in all the years I've been there, I've never seen that much money. But you also raised a point which I hadn't thought about, but every state's going to be getting a lot of money, and the supply for tar or whatever you buy might be on short supply also, because I know everything I buy in my business is short supply. So I know it's happening in truck parts and everything else you can think of these days that you can't buy because of the shortage of supplies. So, okay, with that, who would you like to turn it over to, Nick?
Anybody want to go next?
We have who wants to jump in?
Jay, you want to go?
Sure. Thanks, Nick.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You doing any paving this week or what?
No, but the sun's out, so we're thinking about it. My name is Jay Perkins. I'm Vice President of Sales for Pike Industries. I have worked at Pike for, 35 years now. And so most of you that have been on the committee for a while probably recognize my name, if not my face. I've testified several times before. Yep. So thank you very much for having us in today. Pick up with on what you were talking about, Mr. Chairman. We do need early ads and early bid work. And I will say that the agency has done a fantastic job over the last couple of years in putting together a program and getting the jobs advertised, particularly before the season ends the prior year and through the fall and into the winter. It is very necessary for us to be able to bid on this work and then make plans through the winter to get the work started. For example, the state agency bid a job up on 91, good size interstate job. It's a huge job. It can be done in 2 years, but because the state bid it so early, it allows us to pick up the work, make sure that we've got the resources, the aggregates, the plants maintained to get out there and do it. But the most important thing about that job is that we're going to be able to get out there in April and start work. And when it comes to workforce, it's very important to try to take advantage of the weather and get our people out there on the road as early as possible. So not only can we take full advantage of the season to tackle and complete a robust program, but it also allows us to be able to provide a longer season of work for our seasonal employees. So a couple of weeks on the front, a couple of weeks on the end makes a huge difference to our seasonal employees.
What's one of the issues that when you start bidding now, and it's no secret, are you able to bid at a price that you can lock in? Is it something that's going to be flexible? Because we all know there's a labor shortage and there's a supply shortage. So is that difficult to bid at this point, or you open that up? I don't know how that works.
Well, I'll take this question. If somebody else from the industry wants to speak to it, they can. But a lot of the commodities that go with what we do are protected. They're indexed. Okay. So the Agency of Transportation will bid a job like last fall, and they will say, give us a price based on the price of asphalt cement being $500 a ton. And then we'll give you our best price based on $500 a ton. Of course, when it comes time to do the work, the material might be $600 a ton. So the state will make pricing adjustments based on that. And so some of the items that usually get covered by the state in a bid would be asphalt, fuel, steel are probably the three biggest items that will cover, because they're commodities and it's supply and demand, and we have a difficult time trying to guess what those rates are going to be. However, there are some things like trucks, labor, and other items that go into putting together a bid that we do have to make an educated guess on what we expect the price to be in season. For example, with a truck, if we were paying $90 an hour for a truck last year, we might take a look at what the price of fuel is and say, well, maybe we better figure on 95 this year. And it may cover us in season, it may not, but what is covered is probably 75% of our risk. And what that does by indexing is reducing our risk so we can give you our very best price today for the work we're going to do tomorrow.
Okay, just curious because that's such a crazy time of the economy right now. It's hard to get employees, I know, and I know you're paying more for employees than before. A lot of things are climbing in every industry. I don't care what it is these days. You read about.
Certainly is.
Yeah. Okay, any questions for Jay Perkins at this time from the committee members? Okay, all right, Jay, anything else you want to add before we move on to the next person?
I just want to talk a little bit about workforce.
Yep.
Our industry is no exception to the rest of the other industries and businesses out there that are trying to run a business, that we struggle to maintain a workforce, both in people and trucking is a big challenge, with all the supply chain issues out there. So I just want to talk a bit about the seasonal employees. 80% of our workforce is seasonal. They get laid off in the fall after the work is complete. Some of them go off to a second job. Some of them are farmer types and they have their own work to do and don't get into the workforce. And then some of them rely on unemployment insurance to make it through the winter. We've heard back from some of our employees over the last couple of years that it's been increasingly difficult for our employees to get unemployment insurance and the requirements that they have to go through to collect it. And this makes it particularly hard on our industry that has seasonal employees, because our employees are being forced to go out and actually take other jobs, say nothing about look for them. And I understand that's good for the overall economy, but it is a huge challenge to our industry to be able to provide the service back to the state when our employees are being pushed away, if you will, for more year-round type work. So if there's any way that we can come up with a way to help make our seasonal employees comfortable being seasonal employees without having to get into a different line of business or career and be able to stay, experts in the field that they're in, it would be greatly appreciated.
How many people do you employ roughly in your operation?
Pike is across 3 states is about 800 employees. We tend to have about 2.25 in the state of Vermont.
Wow.
And about 80% of them are seasonal.
It's a big workforce. Yeah. Good size. Yeah. Any questions for Jay at this point? Okay, I think you've covered it well. So anything else on that? Yeah, Senator Perkins, sorry.
No, okay. Yeah, Ms. Perkins, on CDL drivers, is that an issue for you all? We hear a lot about that from other, I know there's exemptions like farm and other, I don't know if do you need CDL drivers for the rigs that you're running?
Thank you for the question, Senator Perchik. It is an issue for our industry, like every industry that involves trucks. There are 2 issues, and I believe the infrastructure bill is going to address a portion of it. One of the issues is to get a CDL license, you got to be 21 years old to go interstate. Now you can go intrastate at 18, but our industry and other industries haven't really gone down that path yet, because in the past there's always been enough 21-year-olds to be able to man the trucks and be able to work interstate, even though they're qualified to go interstate. The other issue with CDLs is the hours of service. What we find in our industry is whenever there is a emergency, supply chain shortage or cold weather snap, or in the case of Vermont, if you remember back during the Irene flood, those hours of service get waived so that our truck drivers can work a few more hours. And absent an emergency, we still struggle to be able to man the trucks and put the trucks on the road we need to be able to do the work we do. So if there's anything that might be able to allow more hours for the truck drivers to work outside of an emergency in the construction industry, because they're very seasonal, I think that would be very helpful to help to be able to at least get all the trucks that are parked manned, and people to be able to get 70-hour paychecks instead of 60.
Is that a federal law or state?
That is a federal law, I
Oh,
believe.
federal. Okay, so every state it's experienced the same problem. Okay,
Pretty much, yes.
Yeah.
Senator Perkins.
And do you need CDL drivers for the paving equipment, or is it just the trucks that are bringing the material in, or you know what I mean? Like the paving, the big paving rig.
Rollers and pavers, we do not need CDL license for currently, but the support equipment, like the distributor truck that sprays the emulsion on the road or brings the water to the job for the rollers, those do require CDLs.
Is that just for the
Yep, go ahead.
side note for the committee? And I don't know if the witnesses have anything about this, and I don't see Wanda still on, but I was contacted by somebody that used a lot of CDL drivers that there used to be a provision that you could train your own CDL drivers, but the federal law is changing how that works. Just changed on February 7th. So it's going to make it more difficult because the CDL drivers have to go to a licensed or approved CDL school instead of doing on-the-job training. So it might be something that the committee wants to work on, because we keep hearing from any industry that uses CDL drivers that it's a problem. So this is good to hear some other things that we might be able, like with the hours and things that we can help with, but also how we can help them to do on-job training might be something we can work with DMV on.
Yeah, good idea. Everything's open for discussion. It's great. Yeah.
Senator Muzzin.
Yes, go right ahead. I can't see you. Go right ahead, Senator.
Mr. Perkins, so I'm intrigued by the notion of lengthening the amount of hours a truck driver can drive outside of hours, and I get that it might be very likely a federal issue, but I'm guessing that has to do with safety issues and keeping attention and so on. I'm curious from a trucking industry advocacy and lobbying efforts, it's amazing how intelligent these cars are these days. They can self-park, parallel park. Are you seeing that most of the trucks that our truck drivers are using have so many advanced safety features that could make the argument that we should, that it's still safe for them to drive longer periods of time because there are more precautions and more assisting tools that are embedded in the more newer vehicles? Am I making any sense with that question, sir?
You are. There is a lot of technology that is different today than it was years ago that might help a truck driver be aware. If he's getting tired, it might help a truck driver keep his focus on the road. But as far as being safe or not safe, I'll just go back to, whenever there's a cold snap, apparently they're safe enough to work extended hours to haul heating oil around. And when there are containers piled up at the docks, there are okay to run extended hours to move the containers away from the docks. And in the case of Vermont, when we were dealing with the Hurricane Irene and all the flooding, months, we were able to run trucks for months with extended hours of service. And I'm not aware of any safety mishaps that were associated with a truck driver working extended hours during that year and a half that we were building the roads back in Vermont.
Yes, Senator Ingalls.
And I can see, anytime you come up onto a paving project, there's a long line of trucks that are waiting to disperse their loads. I mean, you have to have the product there ready and stuff. So it's not like they're continually on the road. Yes, you got to maintain your attention and stuff, but there's almost some rest breaks at times where, they're waiting, they're in line. I mean, sometimes there's 5 or 6 deep in there just waiting to back up and to disperse. So it is different than just being on the open road going hours and hours where you have to maintain that focus.
And I'll agree, Senator Ingalls, that there is an opportunity to rest, get out, stretch your legs on the job. And that same condition exists back at the plant when the trucks are getting loaded. That they can get in line and get out and rest and stretch as well as take a break.
Jay, one of the issues I know that's important to your industry is safety. And we've been talking about, flaggers and lighted paddles and things. How's that working out? Traffic is still a big issue. I know it's not in paving line, but I know you work with a lot of safety issues naturally. And I just wonder how that goes from year to year. Do you find that people are responding more to the safety, or they're just ignoring it? Or
Well, finding the personnel just to do traffic control has been more and more of a challenge.
I hear that's a big issue itself, right?
It's a huge issue. We've had to curtail our daily operations to what shows up on the job for traffic control. You have a big plan to do several operations, but at the end of the day, you only get half of what you need, so you have to move things around. I do believe that other than maybe out on the interstate when speeds get to be a little bit on the high side, that for the most part, traveling public is probably very patient when it comes to seeing construction happen, particularly if it's a road or a bridge that they travel on frequently, because they know at the end of the day what the work product's going to give them to use after the construction crews have moved on.
We're always thinking of ideas how we can make it safer, because we know it's like the snow plows in the winter, give a break to the plows. And so it's always a concern if we don't want to hear a lot of
I've been impressed with some of the portable or mobile traffic control devices that get set up absent a flagger being there.
Okay. Yep,
Whether
yep.
it be a traffic light on a bridge on
Yep.
each end, that you see more and more of that every day, and
Good. Yeah,
it works.
I like that idea of the traffic light, if it's a big project, Okay, all right, let's turn to who would be next. We have Chip Whitcomb or Greg Peckham, or who would like to go next?
Sure, I can speak. This is Greg Peckham. So Jay's a familiar face. I'm a new one for you all. But I'm with the family business, Peckham Industries, fourth generation, and similar size and scope to Pike Industries. And we have several operations in Vermont dealing with infrastructure, both on the paving side of the business and also with precast concrete structures. We have a precast facility located in Shaftesbury, Vermont. But from a paving point of view, I think Jay brought up some really good points. I feel that we have a tremendous capacity to meet some of the excess demand from the state, and that the lettings have improved from a perspective of getting them out earlier. On one of our earlier calls, when this was still up in the air and we weren't sure what the funding was going to look like, there was mention that on the projects on the shelf, ready to go, designed and built, that there were very few, and that there would be a delay in receiving some of this funding and getting projects underway, because first the VAOT needed to build up their design staff, and I think that's still an industry concern. And I just wanted to bring that forward for everyone's attention to just some of the staffing issues and some of the potential workarounds, like consulting and bringing in third parties to help design projects to get these dollars out, and to get these projects underway as efficiently as possible. And I wondered if there was any headway on that from the department and through the state. But also from a capacity point of view, as we see all this funding, and Nick, you mentioned, that every state's receiving it. The really important thing, I think, is to recognize that if we concentrate all of that funding into a single area, then the ability for our contractors and for us to supply might be more challenging. But spreading that out across different areas and targeting projects and being geographically strategic about it is very important during this time. If we say every blacktop plant's operating today at 30% capacity, well, if we throw all of these projects towards a certain area, might have trouble getting those projects done on time and complete. So dispersing them across the state would be a very effective way to use this funding going forward.
Greg, do you find that when we talk about making asphalt, it requires sand or whatever is supply chain available pretty plentiful all over the state? Because that would make a big difference on bidding, because if you got a sand pit, or that's what you use, I guess, for base, right? Sand or stone or chopped up, or you got to have a good supply when you do a bid, right?
Yeah, I feel that the supply is there, that,
Okay,
that there's plenty of capacity throughout the state.
Okay, I didn't know, because, I didn't know how convenient it was to get all the supply, because you got to have a base with that. You got to get all the stone or whatever you use to mix it in there. So any questions from Jay at this time? Anybody? From Greg, I'm sorry. Yes, Senator Ingalls.
Well, earlier testimony we had some days ago, they were talking about mixing in glass into paving projects and all of that. And as we've heard from Greg, that maybe there's not a supply chain issue and the other people can jump in. Is that of value to the paving industry, is to be the ability to mix in glass, or is that just something that's going to be of value maybe to get rid of glass, more not for your guys' benefit? Could somebody comment on that, please?
Yeah, I'd be curious to hear Jay's thoughts as well. But we've seen different additives to the roads come and go over the years. Shingles, glass, tires. Different products that end up in landfills that we're trying to repurpose and find other uses. There's not typically a tremendous benefit to the industry, and it can unfortunately hamper some efficiencies. I think that probably the best recycling benefit that the industry sees is just the reuse and recycling of the existing roadway, and driving the increased participation in our blacktop plants to use more of those recycled materials where available. In Vermont and in New York, typically we're capped around 15 to 20% with the recycled materials. In the Midwest and places in Europe, you see percentages up as high as 50 to 70%, being used. So, Jay, do you have some thoughts on that?
Yes, thank you. To carry on with some of Greg's comments, is the item that we prefer to recycle into hot mix is asphalt, used asphalt, and getting those percentages up would probably be the best benefit to the environment, and the green efforts that we have is to put asphalt back into asphalt. As far as glass is totally doable. You can put it into asphalt. We've done it in the past. But a better outlet, I believe, for glass would be to use it as a sand replacement for either winter sand or under drain sand around pipe bedding for drainage. And we've also blended glass in with the sub bases.
Yeah, that's what I heard. Yeah.
Glass in hot mix is that the film thickness of asphalt on the glass isn't as thick. It's kind of smooth in some of the surfaces. So it's not as thick. So you don't get the bonding with the asphalt that you would get with a natural aggregate.
Yeah. And I guess it's a little harder on tires, I would imagine. I think it's a little sharper than stone, I would think.
If you don't get it small enough, that's definitely
that's what we've heard in the past. Yeah, it's good for a sub-base, lower level. Yes. Anything else, Gregory?
No, thank you very much for your time and for this opportunity.
Anyone here from Whitcomb? Is Chip Whitcomb here? Or?
So Chip actually had something come up at the last minute.
All right. Who else we got? Anybody else?
Paul Lawson is here.
Okay.
I'm here.
Go right ahead.
Well, my name is Paul Lawson. I'm with ST Paving. We are certainly not the size of Peckham or Pike. We are asphalt. We don't make it, we lay it. I would completely echo Jay's comments on anything we can do to make the unemployment situation a little easier for our returning employees would be fantastic. I have spent probably at least a day a week solving employee issues with the labor department. Some of them are made by the employee, some of them, it's just, it's a pain in the butt.
Why is unemployment such an issue? I mean, I would think that'd be pretty simple. It's not.
Well, like we one individual, for example, it was his own fault. He got one number on his social security problem, social security number wrong. And all of a sudden the whole process stopped. He didn't get paid for a long time. And we got it solved, like it was his fault, but it's just, one little number, one little mistake somewhere, and you can go off to Never Never Land. It's that, I'm not sure exactly why it's such a problem, but it isn't easy. And I guess in some ways I'm okay with that, but in some ways, when we have an employee and we need them, we're in no different situation than anybody else, and we're small. So when we lose an employee, it's a big deal. Not that, Jay and Greg, I'm sure if they lose an employee, it's a big deal for them. Here, we know it's direct, okay? And we know that Joe Smith is coming back. He's got to potentially fill out paperwork and go and look for jobs and contact 3 to 4 employers a week in order to get his paycheck. And oftentimes that paycheck, by the way, is the lowest amount that he got during our season. And sometimes that could be a week of rain. That could be 2 days of rain. That's a small paycheck that they're getting it based on. And so anything that can be done to make that easier, or, I don't want it a free for all. I understand that. But and strange stuff happens. They say they're going to come back and they don't come back. But I wholeheartely, what Jay was saying, I'm right on board. The CDL stuff, again, we're a little smaller. We tend to run 50, 60 hours, a few hours here or there wouldn't hurt. We tend to provide our own flaggers. I sometimes go out and flag. I can tell you, as far as I'm concerned, the best way to solve any issues with flagging would be anybody who has any kind of traffic violation. After 3 traffic violations, you become a flagger, and you'll never drive. And you'll never drive the same way again. You won't. I mean, you get out there. The most dangerous. I'm of the opinion. I have no backup for this, but I'm of the opinion that the most dangerous thing we do is set up the traffic control, because that's before it's up. As we're setting it up, that's the gray zone. Okay. And yeah, we're on a back country road. Well, here's the difference. If I get hit on a back country road, okay, my hips are going to be gone. I'm going to be out of work for a year, 2 years. You get hit in the interstate and you're dead. Okay. There's some differences. Neither one is fun, and one is really bad and one is terrible. So the safety stuff, I'm somewhat serious with my suggestion with the safety stuff. It's still, all it takes is a hot afternoon and somebody who's ticked off and needs to go to soccer practice, and they hit the accelerator. They're not thinking with this. They're thinking with, I got to go get Johnny and got him home. And that's all it takes. And you stand out there. I would suggest for anybody to go say, okay, I don't want to do this today, but today I'm going to go out flagging for an hour, 2 hours. By the end of your tenure of that job, you will come back into your office and think, we have to do something. We don't, as far as the state goes, we don't tend to bid. Jay was talking about a big job up on the interstate. We don't tend to go after those. We're in the next layer down, generally speaking. It's not that we're afraid. It's just because we're a asphalt, we're not a supplier. We don't have the competitive advantage or the size that that, Jay and Greg do. But the smaller stuff, a vast majority of that stuff is not on your website, is not given to us out ahead of time. They call it IDIQ or JOC. You can't get a list. You can't say there's 6 jobs in Waterbury and 2 in Middlebury and 3 in Shoreham and wherever else. They're just in VTrans knows about them, and boom, all of a sudden, here it goes. And it might be in your territory, it might not. I would love to see a list of those jobs so we can plan. Jay talks about planning. We plan too. If I know that there are 6 jobs in our area and we're interested in them, that affects our schedule, and it affects our opportunities and our decisions as to where we're going to go, and what we're going to be looking at and what we're excited about and what we're maybe a little less excited, or it's just the more information we have, the better off we are.
Questions? Okay. Senator Kitchell, there's a job opening here if you want to get a CDL license.
Yeah, well, I could be a flagger too, couldn't I? I remember years ago when you had to get the cows across Route 2, and that was a form of flagging. And
Wow.
You were the beneficiary of less than kind comments at times.
Oh, I bet. Oh, yeah. Wasn't very good.
So I
how'd you ever stop?
That could be my next career. But I know that some of the Voc Tech centers have been running CDL programs in partnership with VSAC, and hopefully we can do more of that upskilling. The UI situation is, I've heard this issue before, and that is the work requirement and the work search. And of course, employers would like to have those workers available immediately in the spring. And sometimes they move off into other jobs. So the seasonality relative to work requirements does actually, I've heard that some, actually, to the extent that can be done, companies are keeping staff on full time, full year, in order to stabilize and have the staff in the spring. I don't know if that's true for your companies, but that was somewhere I had heard that comment being made.
Well, they're a big part of the economy because I know they hire a lot of private truckers all over Vermont. Summertime, you see, whether it's Barrett Trucking or all the companies they.
Oh, you see a lot of the private,
private companies,
smaller guys that are
because they can't do it all themselves. So it's.
I thought for a moment, Senator Perkins was kind of vying for a job there. He was but then at the end, he clarified where he was going with his line of question. And I didn't know if he was looking for an opening but then it became clear where he was going with it.
We could use committee time to get the CDL training.
Yeah. Anybody else this morning, Nick? Anybody else would like to add to this conversation?
I jump in with one more.
Sure, yeah, go right ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, John Reynolds, my boss, couldn't be here, but I would be doing him a disservice.
I have to argue with him all the time. He has a camp across the street here, so I have to put up with him all summer.
I'll tell you what. I'll give you a deal on hearing protection, so you might help you. But he would say that I know that his thing is that the way these programs are designed, he's not a big fan of the thin lift modified asphalt stuff that goes on, where you're really milling out very small and you're giving a price per square yard on a very thin modified asphalt spec. That shim and overlay, first of all, the price per square yard, there's no good way of the math falls not to the taxpayer's benefit, and it'd take me a while to explain that. But the shim and overlay of asphalt, we know it works. It's out there, and we're big fans of it. We're big fans of it. The polymer small stuff tends to go to contractors from out of state. although that's beginning to change. I don't know where Greg falls on it. I don't know if you guys, so it used to be proprietary, and I'm not sure that it still is, but and I'm probably not putting this into words as well as John would, but the biggest bang for your buck, our buck, is, granted, maybe a little old fashioned, and trying to talk to anybody about it is virtually impossible. But what else? What other products do you have that are 25% recycled? Not many. Certainly not building a building. And that's just John would want to make sure that I had sounded the horn and let you guys know that's just not a great deal.
Questions? Okay, well, thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. Okay, anything else this morning on the subject? Anybody we missed?
I don't think so. Thank you, Chair Mazza, and thank you to the committee for having us, and we look forward to a busy summer.
Oh, good. Thank you very much.
Thank
Okay,
you.
all right.
Great. Thank you
Okay,
all.
committee. All right, committee, we're going to have a break time until 11 o'clock. So you got a little time to get some work done.
Senator Mazza,
Thank you.
if you want to, Brad Kuchenberger said he could be available as early as 10:30 if you just want to take your break now. Till then.
Okay, we can have a break. Who's this now?
This is Brad Kuchenberger from AOT and Jana Morris, also from AOT. They're on the 5-year infrastructure funding plan.
Okay, so we want to bring them on at 10:30. We'll take a 10-minute
Or
break.
10:35, whatever, if you want a 15-minute
Okay,
break.
let's go, yeah, 10:40. We'll have a little break.